Welcome to Organic News with Cat Waters, revealing the truths behind the conspiracy. Every Tuesday from 6 to 8 Eastern.
Okay, hold on, folks. I'm just, I want to play a little bit of bumper of New York City election fraud as bumper. So just hold on.
They're at work, they have family, they have life. I'm here to represent those people who are not able to vote. And I can go into very specific details about exactly what happened, but I'm essentially a voting rights advocate.
Okay, we're just going to go straight to Yusef Salaam, one of the Central Park Five, who is... Where are you near? You're on a march from New York that started on Mother's Day, and you're marching to Albany to bring awareness to those who are wrongfully incarcerated. Thank you again, Yusef Salaam, for being on Awake Radio for maybe the third time, I believe.
Well, thank you.
And so where are you? Croton on the Hudson, I think, was the last... update?
Yeah, so right now we're in Beacon, New York. The march has been tremendous. We've been receiving a lot of love in the cities that we've been in, the towns that we've been in. People have been honking their horns, putting their fists in the air. We have a kaleidoscope of people with us. So, it's definitely seen and understood that this isn't just like a black thing or a white thing,
Exactly.
It's really a human thing, and we need to drive that issue home. The fact that myself was one of the individuals that went to jail for a crime that he didn't commit, and other individuals as well who've been on the march, other individuals that we know. I mean, we walked by Downstate Correctional Facility and got chased out of there. We walked by Fishkill Correctional Facility and got chased out of there as well. But the great thing about Fishkill was that as we were leaving, we started chanting, no justice, no peace, brick by brick, wall by wall, taking these prisoners out. I mean, taking the prison walls and really dismantling them, And all of a sudden we heard the inmates responding back to this call that we had, enough is enough. The fact that we're fighting for justice for the wrongfully incarcerated, it's been tremendous.
Is there, what organizations are with you and participating?
I am not sure of the exact name of these specific organizations, but I do know that the list of organizations who've been assisting us along the way are probably on the website, wi.org. So if folks want to look us up, see what we're doing, check out who's been involved and all of that, that'd be great. And on top of that, we also have the Facebook page, Justice, 4, the Wrongfully Incarcerated. And we've been using that same hashtag, all together on Facebook, on Tumblr, Twitter, Instagram, and a lot of the other social feeds, just to get the word out and keep people connected to absolutely what's going on at every moment of the march.
And so, I mean, how are you feeling? Are you tired, or you must be tired but yet energized?
Well, I'm gonna tell you. So we have a part of the chant where we say we're fired up. We can't take it no more.
Yeah.
We fired up. We can't take it no more. And I got to be very honest with you. I've been fired up. I mean, my feet are a little swollen and a little sore, but in terms of my body, I'm not tired at all. I'm energized. I'm invigorated. Like I said, when we go to these different places and these different towns and we're being welcomed in the way that we're being welcomed. I mean, it's one thing to be able to walk from one side of the street to the next, or, a few blocks in the towns that we come from to the next. But when you walk from Harlem, New York, all the way up to Tarrytown, when you walk from Harlem, New York, all the way up to Beacon, when you walk from Harlem, New York, all the way up to Poughkeepsie, I mean, all of these places that we're stopping along the way, all of these places that are receiving us, it's tremendous to see this part of the country this way. And also know that the pain that you feel in your feet, the pain that you feel in your back and in your calves and in your leg is a well-deserved pain because you're doing it for a righteous cause.
I mean, I ran the New York City Marathon in 1988. I thought that was...
Oh, nice. You already know.
Yeah. So, okay, just really quickly, if you could, just tell your story. I know you're probably kind of, you've shared it so many times, but it really is still to this day. I mean, I remember it because I was a big jogger.
Yes.
So I remember when that happened, and they're calling it wilding, and right, Donald Trump still hasn't apologized after taking out a full page ad in the New York Times calling for the 5 of you and the others, the Central Park 5, to have the death penalty.
Yes.
And I never even heard when you were exonerated in 2001, I believe it was, right?
Yes. No, we were exonerated in 2002, late 2002, early 2003. But that was long enough, And
so the 5 of you, Raymond Santana, Richardson.
Yeah.
Corey Wise and
Sharonne, yes indeed.
Right, because he's the only one that I haven't interviewed.
Okay.
And so you all did like more than 10 years.
Well, we did. Collectively, we did well over 10 years. But individually, our prison sentences were 5 to 10, and most of us did 7 years in prison.
Right.
Corey Wise was the one who did the most time in prison. He did 13 years in prison. Oh, yeah. And just to give the background of this case, this is a case where the blatant injustices happened. People who were sworn to uphold the law, like the DA, the police officers, the judges, and even common citizens, they were duped by the media. They were swayed by the media to throw us under the bus.
Yeah.
To do to us anything and everything that they would want to do, because the way that they were portraying us in the media, by drawing us in the funny ways that they would draw us and talking about this case in these racially charged headlines and things of that nature. Everything that they did was a direct, not a direct result, but it was a direct action that caused people to look at us as subhuman. And anytime you can see a person as not a person,
right,
then anything and everything can be done to that person.
Right.
But that person is still a person. That's one of the things I want to say. Because at one point in time, the whole city, and really almost the whole country, and probably the whole world, if they were key into hearing what was going on in New York City, they were the ones who looked at us as the scum of the earth. I carry letters around with me when I speak, and a lot of these letters talk about the realities of what happened to me. They talk about the fact that over 400 articles were written in the first few weeks of this case happening. And these articles weren't nice articles. They weren't articles talking about my mother, how she was a professor at Parsons University, the fact that I was a student who had gone to LaGuardia High School of Music and Art, one of the most prestigious high schools in New York City, and I went there for art and design. All of these articles were written in such a way, like I said, to destroy us.
Right. And
what that led to was Donald Trump on May 1st in 1989. This case was April 19th, 1989. So on May 1st, 1989, they had already published our names, our phone numbers, and our addresses in the city's newspapers.
Oh, my God.
May 1st, Donald Trump says, you know what, let me take the dust off of my table and pay for ad space in New York City's newspapers. And I call it like that because when you think about the fact that it cost $85,000 for him to run that ad, most people don't make $85,000 in a year. This man took his own money calling for an action to happen. And I submit that had we been living in the 1950s, we would have become the modern-day Scottsboro Boys. Yeah. They would have drug us from our homes because they knew where we lived. They would have drug us from our homes and marched us to Central Park and hung us from the trees in Central Park. That would have been our reality.
And you weren't even guilty.
What's that?
You weren't even guilty.
and we weren't guilty. But one of the media personalities in particular, a guy named Pat Buchanan, even wrote that in the newspaper. Essentially, it was like, hey, we need to hang these people by high noon tomorrow. And what he was saying, essentially, in the papers that he wrote, he said, we need to take the eldest one, who was Corey Wise, 16-year-old boy.
Yeah.
We need to take the eldest one and hang him from a tree in Central Park. And we need to take the others and horse with them. Maybe the city's park will be safe again. This is what Pat Buchanan said. These are the people that, most people, when they read the newspapers, back then, people would read the newspapers and they would think that everything that they were reading was actual fact.
Right. Well,
they would see the news on the TV and they would swear that what they were watching on TV was actual fact.
Right.
But I submit, I want somebody to do some research. I want somebody to go back with regard to the Central Park jogger case, specifically during the time frame when we were found to be innocent. And I want folks to look at the articles that talk about the fact that, hey, these guys all confessed. And I want them to look at the photographs when they read these articles, because I never made a written or videotaped confession. But they show 5 photos when they talk about these written confessions and these videotaped confessions. And in these 5 photos, they're showing one of the photos twice. They're doing technology right before our eyes, and we're not even picking up on it.
Right. Exactly. And, also I want to encourage people to watch the documentary by Ken Burns, The Central Park 5.
Yes, indeed.
One thing that really astounded me was the fact, they're calling it confessions. They should, you didn't have a lawyer present or anything. Here, you guys are all, teenagers. Like you said, Corey Wise was the oldest at 16 years old.
Yes, indeed.
Having absolutely no experiences with the police, with the justice system ever, trusting that police, do the right thing. And you were all told, I believe, that if you tell us that you did it, we'll let you go home.
That was the thing. That was exactly the thing. But see, what I want to submit as well, and part of why we march, is because we want to change the laws that are oppressing us. And a lot of those laws are very simple to change. Hey, in our case, you had these false confessions. You had some false videotape confessions. But nobody talked about, from their side, nobody said, hey, we got these confessions after 2 days of interrogation, after 15 hours of interrogation, after 8 hours of interrogation.
Right. And
we didn't give the people who were being interrogated anything to eat or drink.
Right.
Think about it.
It is.
16-year-old boy at the top.
It's torture. Right? That is a form
when you
of
look
torture.
Back at the film,
yeah,
when you look back at the film, there's a scene in the film where Corey finally is getting something to drink. And if you look at the way he grabs that soda can, he looks like he's beside himself.
Yeah.
He's hungry. He's thirsty. He's willing to do anything and everything to get out of that hell that he thought he was in.
Unbelievable. And the fact that, they call it confessions again, but the fact that there was no lawyer present. So I don't even understand, how is that allowed? How are they able to interrogate, torture, psychologically torture, you all for hours with no lawyer at your ages?
When the system, we have to go back. We have to go back to 1989, and we have to remember all of the things that was going on back then. But we have to remember also this whole thing with the Giuliani getting tougher on crime.
Yeah.
This whole thing with Mayor Koch.
Arrest some bankers. Getting tough on crime. Give me a break. Getting tough on crime. Arresting, teenagers for things that they didn't do. Yeah, that's really tough.
Well, think about it.
Giuliani.
Even one of the presidential candidates right now, and I'm not even talking about Donald Trump, but even one of the presidential candidates Hillary Clinton, she spoke about this idea of the super predator.
Yeah.
And who's the super predator? The super predator was the individuals that they were saying was getting younger and younger and committing more and more malicious crimes. And then all of a sudden they attached that phrase to us. Even our Mayor David Dinkins, at the time, he said, these guys are urban terrorists. Now, since then, as you see in the film, he said this is a damn shame. He was being swayed by the same media that swayed us all, that hoodwinked us all into thinking that we were the ones that actually raped the Central Park jogger. But what you have to understand as well is that had they done their jobs, had they not said to themselves, we got the right people, we're going to live with what we have, because they knew they had inconsistencies. They knew the stories wasn't right, And if they said to themselves, you know what, let's dig a little bit deeper. Let's try to see if this is actual fact. Because something ain't right in this case. There would have been a young pregnant Latina woman alive today. The last crime that the East Side rapist committed, who was the guy who raped the Central Park jogger, the last crime he committed was that he raped and then murdered a young pregnant Latina woman while her children were inside of the house. When he came into her home and brandished the knife to explain and tell her what he wanted to do and what he was about to do, she said, hold on, let me put my babies in the next room.
Yeah. Yeah.
And after she did that and came back, he then rapes her and stabs her to death.
Ugh. Yep.
Now, had the police done their job, like I said, this was months after he raped the Central Park jogger. This was months after. When he got caught, they had his DNA. When he got caught, the same detectives that were handling the Central Park jogger case were the same detectives that were handling his case. And they never matched the two.
I mean, how ridiculous.
They tried to match the two after we were found to be innocent. They tried to match the two. And what they did was they said, well, this was the sixth man. This was the guy who we had been looking for all along. You mean to tell me this man who had been in prison for 13 years already was the person that you've been looking for all along? And then they tried to concoct another weird story. And they said, you know what? They actually all are in cahoots with each other. They knew that they were going to go to jail, and so they hatched a plan. They said, hey, I'm a confess to this crime 13 years later, so that when it comes time for us to win a lawsuit, we're going to all split the money.
Wait, who
in their right mind would want to go to jail for a crime that they didn't commit, so that they could possibly receive some money later on in life?
They're saying, who's saying that about you?
This was the DA's office at the time. This was the city. This is how the city fought us.
I mean, but how would you guys be going to jail for something that you didn't do when you
But it happened.
They're the ones
and that's what I'm
put
saying.
you there.
It happened. It happened. We were in jail. They tried to make sure that the public thought that we were guilty. They tried to make sure that the public thought that we were the real culprits. And essentially what happens when you give a person a sentence like that, when you publicly execute them or legally lynch them, you're not giving them a prison sentence that ends. You're giving them a lifetime sentence if they happen to survive the prison time.
Yeah.
I mean, going to jail for a crime like rape is one of the worst crimes that you can go to jail for. The only crime that trumps rape is child molestation. And once you're branded with that label as a rapist, once you're branded with that label as some kind of sick person, the inmates have their own way of dealing with that kind of atrocity.
How was your experience in prison? Were you in Rikers Island?
So I wasn't in Rikers Island. Corey was in Rikers Island.
Ugh.
And that was really unfortunate. That was really, really one of the most unfortunate things about this. I spent most of my time in a place called Harlem Valley. I spent the early portion of my time in a place called Spofford. And then I spent the latter portion of my time in an adult facility called Clinton Dannemora.
And like, what was the time like in either of those places?
It was hell.
Ugh, I can't even imagine. Like,
I can't even. I mean, if I tried to describe it, you wouldn't. There's no real way to describe it other than us saying, "Hey, let's go to jail," and then realizing that who wants to go to jail? I mean, I'm a tall guy. I've been this tall since I was about 12 years old. You know, I'm about 6'4". So if you think about it, if a cell is only but yay high and ain't only but yay wide, you know, like length times width times height, if a cell won't even allow me to raise my arms and stretch.
oh man.
If I can touch both walls, if I extend them out. I mean, if I got to sleep on a bed that gives me back problems later on in life.
Yep.
You know, and that's the small stuff. That's not even talking about the food that people eat. I was just watching a video that was posted to my wall by one of the colleagues in the walk, you know, Nikki West. And in the video, the guy says on Steve Harvey's show, he said, you know, I used to be an NBA player. I went to jail for a crime. And when I went to jail, I'm a chef in the kitchen, and I'm looking at the food that the inmates are supposed to eat. And he pulls out a package of chicken. And the package of chicken had a warning label on it that said not suitable for human consumption.
Oh boy.
This is the stuff that they feed us.
Ugh.
This is by design. It's not like you think about like the effects of lead in the water.
Right.
You think about the effects of people. I mean, we can go on and on about this.
Right.
You know, this is the design that they have for us as a people. In the Constitution of these United States, in the 13th Amendment, it clearly states that if you go to jail, they can revert you back to a state of slavery.
Right.
And so if they're reverting you back to a state of slavery, what does that mean? Well, for people who are not black, that word doesn't vibrate the same way. But when you're a black person who has a history of being in bondage, a history that says that they came to your country and put you on ships in the millions and took you from your homes and traveled you overseas so that you could work from can't see sun up to can't see sun down, but no pay, generational disruption, ripping you from your family, ripping you from your loved one. Can't love yourself, can't love your loved one, can't love your children, generationally. And then we want to look back. I want people to look back at that 13th Amendment, and I want them to understand what they're reading. Why is that still there? That's a part of the fabric and the fiber of the documents of this country. It's still there. The 3/5 clause. This stuff is still there. You know? It's permanent.
I wanted to bring up Albert Woodfox, and there are two others, like the Angola 3, I believe they're called. You know, these men they spent, I believe Albert Woodfox spent 43 years in solitary confinement. You know, so, I mean, it's people like him that you're doing this marches for.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's, you know, and the great thing about it is that I've met, you know, like I said, I met so many wonderful folks on this march, not just in the cities and towns that I've been in, but also the folks that I've met who joined us, who were willing to march. You know, I'm standing right alongside one of my good brothers and friends and colleagues right now, you know. And I mean, I don't know if you want him to say a few words, but it would be tremendous if he could, you know, to just share with you all and the public at how we've been received in these cities that we've been in. You know, maybe I'll have him say a few words, being that he's here with me,
Sure.
just to kind of exemplify and show how things have been. Just say something real quick to the listening audience.
What's your name?
My name is Andy Farron.
Can you spell it?
Sure. F as in Frank, E-R-O-N, like the bird, heron, so with an F, Farron.
Okay.
Same thing. And is a nickname from Andrew Farron.
Andrew Farron.
Yes.
So why are you marching with Yusef of the Central Park 5 and justice for the wrongfully incarcerated?
I feel that in my heart, what I think is in everyone's heart, I would like to believe is in everyone's heart, which is a cry for freedom, a strong sense of freedom, of justice, that everybody shares an understanding and a basic desire for fairness, certainly when it applies to ourselves. And when I found out about this march, and it was coming through my home area of the Hudson Valley, and I said to myself, well, this is my community. This is a great Hudson Valley. I want them to connect to all the best people they can here in the Hudson Valley. And I want people in my community to know about this cause. I think everybody senses it. I know I've been unjustly detained, but I'm not black, so I was released. In fact, I wanted to make an issue of it, and I wouldn't bail myself out. I wanted to go to trial because I knew it was unjust. They knew it was unjust too. But the situation changed for me, and they actually expelled me from jail. The judges recused themselves, and then they said they never got the paperwork. They didn't want it to go to trial. So I got a very different response from the same system of injustice, same criminal injustice system. But even though I cared very much about this issue as an activist on many issues, I had no idea of the scope of the issue, and I have learned so much walking beside a man who spent 27 years for a crime he didn't commit. There with his wife, who was the same woman that was with him before he went in there when he was 21 years old, and the commitment and the depths of shock that have happened to the families. There's so many aspects that I had not considered. The amount of prosecutorial misconduct, it's astounding. The amount of DNA evidence, the amount of appeals people have to go through when a culprit has been found or confessed. DNA evidence has proven somebody else has done it. All the witnesses have recanted, and the man was a child when he was incarcerated, but it can take a decade or 2 decades for them to get out of jail in the system we have, and then years or even decades if they get compensation at all. And while I wouldn't have disagreed with you that was happening, the scale of it, to the point of hundreds of people, 149 people exonerated this year, 139 last year, 91 both of the years before that. Now, when you think about that, that means that 4 years ago, 91 and meant there was still a good 400 more that were 300 more that were 400 more that were going to be exonerated in just a few years that were innocent, but we're still doing time, which means 400 families and 400 circles of people. And those are just the ones that make it out through the system that we've got now. The scope of this problem is astounding.
Right.
And I know that if I wasn't aware of it, I'm sure a lot of people are not aware of it in my own community of people that pay attention to these kind of matters. And this is a much bigger problem than anybody is paying attention to.
And I wanted to just make the point that as time goes on, I mean, I don't really have a time frame, but as time passes, this system has less and less and less to do with justice and laws and everything to do with profit, which is in my, like I would kind of bet that has a lot to do with it. And I mean, there's no accountability too for these people in power. I mean, like the system moves at a snail's pace when it comes to putting and holding anybody in power accountable. And then it moves at a snail's pace when it comes to exonerating and compensating someone completely innocent, who did absolutely nothing wrong.
I met a legal scholar who told me that there is a committee for judges' oversight for judicial misconduct on the part of judges. So I was involved in some trying to bring justice to a situation where we actually had to appeal because we were being railroaded by a judge. It actually worked. But, it's a little committee. It sits in Albany, and I have practically never met anybody who knows that it even exists. but I assumed that there was one for prosecutors as well. It turns out there isn't even one for prosecutors at all. So as little as police face accountability and as little as anyone knows how to bring a judge to accountability, there is no existing accountability at all. They're completely above the law. And being above the law is like royal systems. It's completely opposite of a democratic system.
Right. I mean,
that's in fact why
I've been saying this stuff since the 70s.
Sorry?
I've been saying this stuff since the 70s. I mean, there's so much corruption, really, there's so much abuse, and people in power never get held accountable. And the public in general is just programmed, just unconsciously. People are programmed. They don't even realize that they're programmed to scapegoat, the most vulnerable people and bail out people in power. Even when people in power are guilty, for some reason, there's just this taboo programmed into the public that, you can't hold someone, in power accountable. And I'm just going to quickly refer to that movie called Spotlight that went on in the 70s about these priests in Boston that were molesting children for, years. And then, it turned out that it was over, 200 and some odd priests had molested over 1,000 children. And families, neighbors, even the police were in on, protecting and not holding priests accountable. So it's there's a line. Stanley Tucci is the actor that plays this lawyer, and the line he says in this movie that really stuck with me was, "If it takes a village to raise a child, it takes a village to abuse one," which I thought is completely true. But
well said. I would also point out, using the children of people in power, because they didn't want to touch me because my father was a local New York Times journalist. So they found that out and they got rid of me as fast as they could and buried it all and hid from the assault on me. It would have been a very different situation if I was not considered a child of the power system.
So are you going to? Are you going to walk all the way to Albany with Yusef Salaam?
I'm currently working on rebuilding the Clearwater sloop in Kingston, and it's urgent that we get that boat back in the water. So I'm going to try to fit in 2 days of work. But I have taken the week off that I had, and I'm using it to do this work. The first several days, the last couple of days, and because I'm from the Hudson Valley, I want to help organize what they need is Poughkeepsie. So I've set myself to calling whoever I can in Poughkeepsie, and their arrival in Poughkeepsie is Wednesday. So I'm going to see it through till I can excuse myself without any detriment to the hospitality for these brave walkers who have headed out without everything figured out about where they're going to stay. But an act basically of faith in the people around them and the cry for justice in everyone's heart. They're making their way through our area here in the Hudson Valley, and so I'm going to take a couple of days off, and then I'm going to come back to it. Then I'll go back to the boat and work till it's in the water again. But I'm going to be staying in touch with this issue into the future, and along the way, I'm also meeting. I don't want to confuse the issue, but there's something called restorative justice, which is a whole different paradigm of justice. Punitive justice, we look for a victim, a criminal. The victim is considered the law, frankly, and the state attacks the person that they deem they want to attack and blame, and then they have all the power and are accountable only to themselves. And this is a punitive justice system. The whole system of jails is fundamentally wrong. And restorative justice is a different model based in the Mennonite community, the Native American community, and the Maori, the Native New Zealand community. And it's spreading worldwide. At least it's become popular as a way to handle juvenile cases where people get in the circle together and we look at who's really been hurt here. Very often, the so-called perpetrator is actually one of the person most needing help, and And it's not always the case that the victim is actually needing something directly, but very often it's family members. And restorative justice addresses the full circle of the family, members of the so-called perpetrator, but there's no perpetrator. There's just a circle around of people who have been affected by an incident. They all gather together. They share about what their various situations are. We find out where the hurt is. We all find within our circle who needs what from whom. We all bring, and then there's healing. And then we move on. But we don't need to find victims, and we certainly don't need to punish anybody. What we need to do is find who in the community is hurt and restore and peace and healing and whatever is needed from whoever can bring it. And that is how a community truly heals itself, a community that loves its people, a community that loves each other.
Yeah, we definitely need, we need
in
communities.
Sweden, they have a very different system, and I think it's because Swedish people love Swedish people. And so we need to be human beings in the United States that love human beings in the United States and treat each other as if we're a people.
Well, more than they love money, because I'm just, I have to just kind of point out that my next guest who's going to be on at 7 p.m., Mr. William Binney, who worked for the NSA for over 30 years. I mean, I've interviewed him. This will be my third time, I believe. And I mean, he basically comes right out and he says that the NSA sold the people out for money. I mean, everything is like become about money in this country, which isn't even real. I mean, it's created out of debt. It's, fractional reserve lending just inflates money. It's not even real. It gets perpetuated and created out of debt. And, people don't realize that it's getting diluted more and more. And the more money gets diluted and the more people just put money first over everything else, that means more valuable things like nature, humanity, community, and relationships are literally just going to be devastated like we're devastating. They are being devastated like we're devastating the environment. So, I never put money first.
I think those truths are true to everyone. I think all the people in all the prisons and all the jailers and all the judges at a human level in their own home, in their backyard, respond to a bird singing in the same way or a child laughing in the same way. We are all made the same by the same creator. And we're all, on a spiritual level, I believe, identical. And these shields we have around us, these bodies, have been positioned to be aimed at each other in positions of fear. And we operate from this ignorant stage of thinking that these bodies are who we are, and this material is really what it is that we need to be worried about. And then we're set against each other with our fears. And that's my personal belief, is that we just need to realize who we truly are, which is sparks of consciousness, sharing this beautiful planet. And on that level, relating to each other on that level, I think we can touch each other's hearts. But the key is that we need to be touching that level within ourselves, and we need to be addressing each other from that point of view to that point of view in each other. And maybe magical thinking, it's not a very political thing to say, I realize, but I believe it.
You sound like me. So, is
Yusef, like a lot of your listeners.
Yeah, is Yusef available?
All of your listeners.
Is Yusef available or?
Yes. Oh yes, I'm here.
Okay, thank you, Andrew Ferron, for sharing his wonderful words of wisdom. So Yusef, I wanted to talk about the fact that they had no evidence on you whatsoever, clearly, because you didn't do it and you weren't at the scene. So how do they?
Yes, indeed.
Again, like, you got to have evidence.
Well, see, that's the thing. That's the same thing. Like, on neither of the Central Park Five, none of us had evidence. And what I want to say to you about that is that the DA, at one point in time, they kept saying, there's DNA evidence, there's DNA evidence, there's DNA evidence. And so the public was waiting for this DNA evidence because they wanted to almost like put the nail in the head, drive it in. They wanted to see it. They wanted it to be real. And, once the DNA evidence came back as not matching, The DA then swept that piece under the rug. But what I submit is that when you leave negative residue out there by saying that there's going to be DNA evidence, irregardless of whether it comes back or not, you've done damage. And so now she comes forth and says, there will be no DNA evidence in this case, but what we do have are the confessions.
Right. Like,
and you know, so my oldest son is 20. My youngest son is 2 months old, you know, and we have a whole host of age ranges in between because I have 10 children through the blended family that we have. Right. But when you look at it, what I submit all the time is that my 16-year-old, my 15-year-old, shoot, my 20-year-old can't go in the kitchen and make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich without leaving DNA evidence that they were there.
Right.
So you're talking about 14, 15, and 16-year-old boys who were said to have raped and nearly murdered a woman within inches of her life.
Exactly.
I mean, she lost 3/4 of her blood.
Yeah.
So we, you know, she was said to have been struggling with Kevin Richardson, and you know, the public was told that Kevin received a scratch on his face from the Central Park jogger. So you check underneath her fingernails, and you don't see any evidence of skin from any of the boys. You check the clothes, you check the shoes, you take the hands, you take our hair samples, our saliva samples, our DNA samples. You take everything, and you mean to tell me that there was no match, and you still convicted us?
Right. And I find it pretty, I don't know, ironic that it was actually the rapist himself who came forward after being in the same jail with Corey Wise. And
you know, look at the whole sense of this all. I mean, here he is in a jail cell, not even too far down from him. Met Corey Wise for the first time months after Corey was in prison. Bumped into him, knew who he was, you know, and basically thought to himself, I got away with the perfect crime. Sees Corey Wise 13 years later after he himself had been on this spiritual quest to find God and to understand religion and so forth and so on. And he sees Corey 13 years later and has a change of heart. He sees now pain in Corey's eyes. He sees the trial and the stress and the struggle that Corey has gone through. And he says to himself, I gotta, this man ain't supposed to be in jail. I did the crime. And I did it alone.
All right, one
and
person.
He came forth. Yeah, he came forth and he told that truth. And by him telling that truth, I mean, we all see television shows like CSI or NCIS, you know, all of these television shows tell us that the science of forensics is an exact science. It tells us that when these folks come into rooms or crime scenes and they need to recreate the crime scene, they can almost recreate the crime scene to a T. They know by the splatter of blood or what hand the assailant hit the person who got assaulted with. They know by the footprints how big the person's shoe print was. Sometimes they can even know all kind of other things from the footprint. The person, you know, they drag the side of their feet a certain way because the imprint of the footprint is of such in the back, you know? And what I'm saying about that is that they had all of this information in the Central Park jogger case. They had it all.
I mean, it's as
and
if
that's one of the reasons why when Matias Reyes, I'm sorry, just really got to quickly say this last piece. That's one of the reasons why when Matias Reyes said what he said and told how he committed this crime, they knew he was telling the truth.
Yeah. Did he?
And that all of y'all were not committing the crime at the time that they found no matches. But there was a public furor, and there was a craze, and it was the public was like bloodhounds that have been shown some blood. They go crazy until they can find what they're looking for. And it was an insane situation that's been whipped up by the media.
I mean, it was. It seems to me like they knew the investigators, the NYPD. They have to know when they were torturing you guys emotionally for hours that you're not confessing. I mean, they
Well, let
have
me
to
tell you
just
this,
know
right?
this.
So it goes so deep. Like I said earlier, we got chased off of the grounds at Downstate Correctional Facility today. We got chased off of the ground at Fishkill Correctional Facility today.
Oh wow!
And in both instances, there was a sergeant or something like that called, right? A superintendent called and got out of the car, and even though we said, "My bad, we're leaving," they said, "You can't be here." You know, and I'm telling you, if I was able to videotape these people, you would have seen evil in their hearts.
Exactly.
You would have seen hatred in their hearts. I mean, our shirts clearly state what we're about. It says justice for the wrongfully incarcerated, right?
Which is supposedly the system that they work for.
But if you would have seen it, you would have understood that this systemic thing about hatred, this systemic thing about this whole thing, I mean, they looked at us and saw an opportunity that they had always seen in us. And by that, I'm trying to allude to and get people to understand that the Central Park jogger case was not an isolated incident. The Central Park jogger case, the fact that people believe this lie so thoroughly, it tells me, and it should tell others, that the method and tricks that the system had been using was being tried and perfected. And when the Central Park jogger case came around, when they told the people the lie, they ate it up.
Right.
Regardless of the fact that what they were telling them was so inconsistent, regardless of the fact that what they were saying, even in the false confessions, they gave Raymond Santana options. They said, choose one. She either was hit by a brick, a stick, or a pipe. And in Raymond's false confession, I'm not even mentioned. In Kevin's false confession, it's like this whole gamut, pitting people against each other.
Right.
When they know without a shadow of a doubt this woman was hit in the head in a certain spot because they saw the splatters of blood, that she was drug off into the woods because they saw the drag mark, that she was tied up with the article of her own clothing, to which no one in their false confessions even said.
Right.
I mean, this woman was said
Details.
to have been struggling, fighting for her life. I mean, you know how a person's going to fight for their life if it really gets down to it. Yeah. This lady was said to have been fighting for her life. And in the struggle, there was no evidence left on any of the people that was assaulting this woman.
I mean, it's almost, it's like an insult to your intelligence. But I mean, the bottom line is, I hate to sort of say it, but the public really is easy to just, you can just sell them anything. I mean, because they're not going to look. I mean, they're not going to, that's not normally what people do. I mean, they're just going to take the word of, even today, that's, the media, you always hear, the mainstream media, they sell the public what the corporations want, and the people just eat it up. But I wanted to.
I would suggest that what they were doing was they were not even trying to create a picture that perfectly matched the reality that their science told them. They were trying and succeeded in creating a picture that matched the fabricated racist monster story that is fear-based and rampant throughout the public, because that's who they were playing to. It had nothing to do with justice. It had a lot to do with saving face and making them look like heroes, like they're earning it. Just throw people in jail that match who everybody's fear is about, and that will work. And it did work. And that's what they were trying to do. I would submit that they were trying to do what they did.
And look at how long, so they got exonerated, and look at how long it took, to get compensated, 25 years or so.
Yeah. What's so crazy about this whole situation is that they had a speedy method to convict us.
Exactly.
And then when we were found to be innocent, there should have been a speedy method to make us whole.
Exactly. I mean,
but what they did was they said no. They said, Mayor Mike Bloomberg said This is a no-pay case. We're not paying these people a dime. We're going to take them to court. Because the DA's office kept saying, the truth, when we go to court, you'll see why we shouldn't pay them anything. But in the meanwhile, they was hoping and praying that they wasn't going to go to court. It was like they was playing a game of cards. They didn't have no winnings in their hand.
Right.
But they had the perfect poker face.
Well, I mean, if you're
and they
exonerated,
played that poker face for years.
Yeah, if you're exonerated, Matthias Reyes admitted it. I mean, you're not guilty. You're doing this time in jail that you didn't deserve to do. I mean, and then exactly, like, on top of that, they want to say, oh, we're not compensating you. I mean, like, where do they get this stuff from? I mean, like, these people, I'm telling you, I believe people in power have, like, real mental problems. I mean, like, mental illnesses. I mean, these people are, like...
You know what they say? They say absolute power corrupts absolutely.
I mean, these people have they're mentally disturbed. I'm sorry. Like, I have to say it.
Yeah.
I wanted to...
They call it a power trip, but you described it clearly.
I have to mention the Correctional Corporation of America, because this is this is a stock. You can invest in their stock. And there are private prisons popping up all over this country. And who do you think they want to put in there? I mean, there's no investing in education or, jobs or a future. They want to take all of the people that, and put them in jail. I mean, not for being guilty of anything, just because there's no, they want to profit off of putting people in jail.
Yeah. This is capitalism at its finest. I mean, and it's funny because, people always talk about capitalism from the perspective of, well, everybody should be able to earn a right to earn as much money as they possibly can and want to. But think about it. That young man that I spoke about earlier, he said he was in the dining room, and I'm calling it a dining room, although in jail we call it the mess hall, right? But he was in the dining room, and he was preparing food. He was one of the chefs. And so in there, he pulls out that package of chicken, and on the side of the package of chicken, it says, warning, not fit for human consumption.
Yeah. Somebody
packaged that chicken.
Yep.
Somebody put it in there, and they put it in there for a profit. I mean, when I worked in healthcare, and this is how I want you to understand this whole profit thing, right? When I worked in healthcare, some companies had $1 million a year packages. They were compensated $1 million a year. One company in particular, I'll never forget, they used to make the sheets, the bed sheets that the patients would lay on. These bed sheets would have to be changed every so often, right?
Right.
The bed sheets cost $1 to make.
Yep.
They had $1 million contract.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? And there's nothing wrong with that, but what I do submit is that there's something wrong with people, for instance, I just saw a recent Kentucky Fried Chicken commercial. They were trying to call it Kentucky Fried Chicken, but we all remember that it wasn't, at some point in time, there was something that was found out that was corrupt about this company, right? And what was found out to be corrupt was that they had to change their name from Kentucky Fried Chicken to KFC. Right. And the people who were hip and keen as to what was going on realized that legally they couldn't call what they were serving chicken.
Yeah, it's really...
Because they were doing something else with their stuff.
It's like a genocide. I mean, it's just a genocide society, like just killing people and everything
Yeah, exactly. There's stuff that's being found out about these food companies, people finding wood chips in part of their cheese.
Yeah, unfortunately.
People finding glass particles in some food. I mean, come on.
I'm pretty much out of time. I want to thank you, Yusef Salaam, and you are with Justice for the Wrongfully Incarcerated.org. Go to that website and you can see the map and the directions if you want to meet up with them at any time and march along. But the next guest.
And I want to just also let you know too that you can shorten that by just putting in the words J, the number 4, wi.org. If you put in those letters as well, it'll pop up to the same website.
Okay. Thank you so much, Yusef.
Thank you.
Okay, peace out.
All right, peace. I appreciate you.
Okay, bye. Okay, unfortunately, Tracy McLeod, who was supposed to be on at 6:30, she was emailing me during the first half an hour. She was not able to be on at 6:30, which is, I let Yusef continue to speak. But I just wanted to mention Tracy McLeod, an advocate against youth transfer into adult prisons after her son killed himself the night before he was going to be transferred to an adult prison days after his 17th birthday. She's the founder of Families and Friends Organizing for Reform of Juvenile Justice, Missouri.